In this exercise, we're setting up a new Windows 2016 server on VMware. So we're going to go in, we're going to give our new server a name. In this particular case, we're going to call it Mars. We're going to select the operating system that we want to use, which is Windows, and then we're going to select the flavor of Windows, which is going to be Windows 2016. We're going to use our data store that's already set up. Now we're going to customize our settings. For this particular one, we're going to up the memory to 6 gigs, and we're going to up the network to internal, and we're going to point it then to a ISO image to actually do the install from. We have a folder called ISOs where we already have our Windows 2016 ISO stashed. We're going to select Next and Finish. And so the ESX side of the server build is now finished. And we had forgotten to actually update to 2 processors, so we're going to actually bump that up. And notice that you can't change the number of sockets unless you have a greater number of CPUs selected. Okay, now that we have that built, what we're going to want to do is we're going to open the VMware Workstation to continue working with this image. So we go to Console and Launch. And we're over in VMware Workstation. We've already logged into the VMware instance, and we're going through the install process now, as if we were sitting in front of the machine. We're going to select add the key later. You can go 30 days without needing to put the key in. Make sure you select data center with desktop experience, otherwise you're going to be stuck with Windows Core. So unless you want Windows Core, don't select it. Select the accept the license, continue. We're going to make sure that our hard drive is showing up that we're installing to, and it'll run through the installer, which will take a while. Once the installer finishes, it'll come up and reboot and ask you to set the initial administrator password. It needs to be complex, so uppercase, lowercase, numbers, or symbols. Make sure you remember what you're putting in there, because otherwise you aren't going to be able to log into the server. Once the server does come up, you'll be able to log in using the administrator account, which will be the one that comes up as default, and enter the password you had selected before. And for networks, for our case, we're going to have it that yes, we want to select that. And then now we want to install VMware Tools. This adds additional support for VMware specific drivers, for VMware NICs, and for VMware video drivers. So we want to select that in the top toolbar, and then as we select that, we can either, if we are fast enough, click on the pop-up and start the installer, or if you aren't fast enough to catch that little pop-up or don't notice it, you can actually navigate to this PC. You'll see that the disk is actually mounted and you can start the installer manually that way. It does pop under rather than pop over, so you'll see a little icon in the taskbar. Select that, start your installer, select complete, select next. And this will install the VMware Tools onto the server, which then will require a reboot before it actually takes effect. Okay, now that we're finished, we'll select no, because we want to do a couple other things before we actually do our reboot. So we're going to go into local server, and what we're going to want to do is change the server's name so it actually matches what we're expecting. And in our case, we want to change it to Mars. Select OK. And yes, we know we need to reboot to make that effective too. We're going to say restart later because we have a couple other things we want to do. We're going to go in and change the IP address so we have connectivity to the outside world. Turn off IPv6 because we aren't using it. For this particular case, we're going to go into IPv4 For our particular server, we're going to be using the 192.168.79.100 for this particular server. It's going to have subnet mask of a /24. And then our default gateway is going to be 192.168.79.254, which is a server we previously built. For our network, we have private DNS servers 10.1.1.20 and 10.1.1.22. Now that we have networking set up, we can go in and verify that we have connectivity to the outside world. Except we forgot to do one thing. And IE is going to get really cranky at us, so we're going to fix that first. So first we're going to go in and turn off IE Enhanced Security. Otherwise it's going to prompt you for any web page you go to yes, allow that page. Now that we've turned that off as an administrator, we can go to a sample page. This particular one is apple.com. Make sure that we have connectivity to the outside world through our gateway server that we built previously. Now we're going to go in and set our time server. So we're going to set our time zone, setting that to Central Time, which is where we currently are located. And then we're going to go to Internet Time and Update Now. And so you need to make sure you have connectivity before you do this step, otherwise you aren't able to get out to time servers to change that. For the sake of our labs, we are going to be turning off our firewalls for these particular labs. So turn both firewall settings off. And now we can reboot our server, but we're actually going to want to shut down now rather than reboot. And the reason that we're doing a shutdown is, if you notice on our screen, our video settings are smaller than our screen, so we have a lot of black space around that. So what we want to do is we're going to make a change in our VMware settings when this is in an off state to allow us to see that whole screen. And so we go into VMware, we're going to go into Edit Settings, we're going to go into Video, and we're going to use the host settings. Now we can power back up our virtual machine. And now we use the full desktop real estate that we have available for us to be able to work on this server. Makes it a whole lot easier to administrate it. We can log in. And that completes building your base Windows 2016 server and is ready now to start working, promoting it or making it into any other specific services.